So yes, I am finally adapting the Garden Warfare Iceberg to video explanation. This project has been the product of compiling hundreds of hours of research videos and files, and I have tried my best to make the definitive explanation of the iceberg. Briefly, in case you don't know what an iceberg chart is, it's essentially a compilation of facts, trivia, and knowledge about a subject, and the further we get through it, the darker and more obscure the entries will progressively get. So now, from the most absurd glitches to the darkest corners of Garden Warfare, this is the Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare Iceberg explained.
The zombies are coming.
Boss mode. If you've played Garden Warfare 1, then you know what this is, but for those who haven't, essentially what boss mode is an extra playable mode in Garden Warfare 1 that you can access on both teams, and it's unlike any of the other playable classes in the game in the sense that you're not actually a character moving around the map. Instead, you interact with this sort of mini-game, and this allows you to perform multiple actions that will affect the real match, such as, dropping radars, healing items, and bombs to the players. I'm showing what this interface looks like on screen, but as you can probably tell, this isn't really the best way to play the game. It's not fun. I mean, you will never meet someone who mains boss mode. Public mods. The PC version of Garden Warfare 2 can be modded with things like playable bosses, no cooldown on abilities, new character variants, power-ups, texture packs, debug menus, extra balances, scrapped assets in the files, and actually being able to play boss hunt and solo survivors. You might think this sounds sick, right? Well, most of these mods are actually usable in public servers without restriction. So yeah, you can imagine a lot of PC matches are basically unplayable and just random. Like, I mean, look here, someone's playing squash in an actual match. That just is not part of the base game. Mid-air burrow. Now, this will undoubtedly bring up some very painful memories for a lot of us soldier players, but what the mid-air burrow essentially is a phenomenon that happens when a chomper is burrowing you, and the lag and the desync in the server is just that bad that he basically flies 50 feet through the air to secure a vanquish that just should never ever have happened. Now, sometimes these can be tame. I won't say excusable, they can be tame, but as you can see on screen right now, sometimes they can just be absolutely diabolical. Yeti is a robot. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty well-known one. As you probably know, the Yeti is in actuality not really a zombie. He's just like a robot disguised as a zombie. Upon death, if you're zooming into his death animation, you can see like cogs and wires and just mechanical parts that will come out of his body. So he is in fact a robot. Gravedigger zombie. So here is one of the more infamous instances of cut content from the series. The Gravedigger was the original support class for the zombies before the scientist eventually took that role. From concept art, we can see he had a hand grenade ability and a tombstone that could apparently be used to raise AI zombies. Although not present as an actual class, he did still make an appearance in Z-Tech Factories as an Easter egg with his fully rendered model. Slender Man in Garden Warfare 1. Another fairly infamous entry here, but if you go over to some of the forested areas in Zomboss Estate, you can see Slender Man standing there ominously. Funnily enough, however, the game was eventually updated to show Slender Man getting chomped. Concept art. Just like any other games, the Garden Warfare series is home to lots of concept arts of ideas both included and cut from the final game, many of which I will touch on later. Fish puzzle. So this is an entry largely in the same vein as the collectible snow globes and gnomes you can find around Garden Warfare 2. Around the backyard there are 10 findable fish, and once you find them all, you can obtain the ribbit hat. I actually wasn't aware of this for a long time, even after I'd done the snow globes and gnomes, so I'd say it's quite a bit more obscure than those, and that's why it lands on the iceberg. Promotional characters. Garden Warfare has 4 promotional subclasses for some of the characters: the Berry Shooter, the Citrus Cactus, Dr. Chester, and Chester Chomper. And these did all come with their own, in cases, custom abilities and playstyles abilities. I mean, they literally were their own individual classes. What lands them on the iceberg, however, is that they were unfortunately not included in Garden Warfare 2 and are only a part of Garden Warfare 1. Mystery of the Moon. Mystery of the Moon is a playable mission that can only be accessed during the game's download process. Most players would have experienced this, and it is basically just a little pastime activity slash mission before the game's fully downloaded. The mission just has you defeat a couple enemies and go through some portals. Scaredy Shroom Sniper class. For how high this is on the iceberg, it's paradoxically almost impossible to research. What I could gather, the Scaredy Shroom was originally going to be the sniper class for the plant, possibly taking design inspiration from Nightcap from PVZ Heroes, but Nightcap did eventually appear in BFN anyway. Deadbeard loves Rose. In Captain Deadbeard's ship, if you look through his cabin and on his bed, you can actually see he has a rose plush tucked into his duvet, and I'm sure you can connect the dots as to what this could mean for Deadbeard's interests. Rank plate 55. Of course, we all know the maximum rank plate you can achieve in Garden Warfare 2 is rank plate 54, but a few years back it was found in the game's files that a rank plate 55 was added to the game. This of course led to lots of speculation and hopes of additional characters, but ultimately nothing came of it. Gnome vision. When wearing either the leprechaun goggles or the gnomish perspective hat, the player's visuals will be altered to what you're seeing on screen right now, and this is known as gnome vision, so this must just be how gnomes see the world. Playable Gargantuar. So yeah, from looking through the files, there's actually a playable model and interface for a playable Gargantuar class in Garden Warfare 2. At what point in development or game time this was planned to be added, I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, it was probably considered to be like how the Torchwood was made playable for the plants, but ultimately was scrapped in favour of the Hover Goat. With the intervention of mods, however, of course, the Gargantuar is actually playable. Unused boss hunts. So there are actually quite a few unused bosses in the game's files, a lot of them even in somewhat functioning condition. The unused bosses include the Super Chili Bean, the Renegade Imp, Zombot, Beatboxer, Crab Robot, and apparently in the files there's an Orange Juice Robot. Yeah. Remarkably, also an Imitator boss fight can actually be found in functional, albeit quite buggy condition. PVZ 1 house in Garden Warfare 2. So yeah, on the plant spawn in Zomburbia there is an Easter egg, which is exactly what the entry says. It is Plants vs Zombies 1 house in Garden Warfare 2. Same front yard, same lawnmower, same arrangement of everything. It's a completely faithful Easter egg. Giant tentacles. In Zombopolis, just after the first capture point, if you take a look at the Statue of Liberty Zombot statue at the right time, you will be able to see, as you're seeing right now, a giant tentacle emerge from the water and wrap around the statue. Torchwood / Hover Goat variants. So yeah, this entry is of course referring to how the unlockable Torchwood and Hover Goat classes in Garden Warfare 2 sadly never received any variants. They only received costumes kind of misleadingly, but never gained any sort of actual different variants for the characters. Although of course with the intervention of mods, as you can see here, some variants can be added in. And overall it's just a shame this was never realised in the final game. Crystals. This entry is alluding to the odd inclusion of just crystals, more specifically zirconium crystals in Garden Warfare 2, where they've never been prominently featured in the series up until this point. We can get a clue into their significance to the zombies by one of the fact machines which tell us they're a good source of fiber and vitamins. Pairing this with the fact the crystals are literally called zirconium crystals strongly suggests the crystals are a substitute for brains on the moon. Renegade Imp. So yes, as previously mentioned, the Renegade Imp is a cut imp character from Garden Warfare 2. There is still some remaining evidence of the character in the game's files. The imp was essentially a super powerful imp variant enemy with much stronger weapons and a warp ability. But what's surprising is that the cut imp character is not actually a playable class, but a scrapped boss hunt. Invisible Super Bean. This entry refers to one of the more well-known glitches in the games, this being when the Super Bean boss enemy glitches and turns invisible, and loses his health bar and ability to be killed, I'm pretty sure, along with his visibility. And as you can see here, it makes trying to defeat the Super Bean an even more horrific experience. Garden Warfare comic. So yeah, you may not have known this, but there is an official Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare comic. With several volumes, it basically follows the plot of how Dr. Zombots took over Suburbia in Garden Warfare 2 by finding a metallic butt, apparently. Crazy Dave in the van. So in pretty much every scene involving the van, you can see Crazy Dave through the window, like when you're going to garden ops. I mean, that is pretty much the whole entry. It's pretty simple, but I suppose it's a cool bit of trivia for the game. And this is me after editing the whole video, and I did a bit more research. I actually found this Crazy Dave idle animation that is apparently in the game's files. So I guess Crazy Dave was at some point planned to be present in the game, but why or when this was scrapped is unknown, unfortunately. Frozen Arctic Troopers. To be fair, this is a pretty obvious entry if you've just played the game enough, but of course across the beginning section of Great White North and other select areas across Garden Warfare 2, there are several Arctic Troopers frozen in ice. I suppose it's ironic since they do the freezing themselves, but they have no ice immunity in game, so it makes sense. Crossover Easter eggs. There are several instances of cross-series Easter eggs and details across the games. For example, the train in Jewel Junction including Normandy from Mass Effect on its carriages. Jewel Junction also contains a reference to Dragon Age Inquisition with a helmet that's mounted on the wall here. And across the rest of the maps there are more references to games like Wind Waker and different movies and cultural references too, of course. Magnifying Grass and Power Lily. The Magnifying Grass and Power Lily from PvZ 2 were actually planned to be potted plants in Garden Warfare 2. Magnifying Grass would have acted as a debuffer to zombies, whereas the Power Lily would have buffed neighbouring plants, and they are actually still present in the files. Team Swap Glitch. What the Team Swap Glitch is basically an exploit that you can perform in the backyard in Garden Warfare 2, where there is a way you can actually play as a plant on the zombie side and vice versa, and switch teams like that through a glitch involving the Zomburger missions. For a detailed explanation, I recommend this video by Bobox999. as this is quite a complex trick to perform, but at the same time is very interesting and just like unlike any other glitch in the game pretty much. It's definitely worth it. Walnut Hills upgradable turrets. On the map Walnut Hills, specifically in Garden Warfare 2, near each base, the defender bot that engineers can build are actually leftover zombot turrets from Garden Warfare 1. However, when it's upgraded to tier 2, it basically becomes a glitchy mess and just spazzes out without real function. I guess because the leftover code from Garden Warfare 1 just wasn't changed when it was translated to Garden Warfare 2, so it just doesn't work. Playable delivery goat in backyard. This one is similarly complex to perform to the team swap glitch, but if you play the Happy Leaf Day mission on the plant side and then switch to the zombie side and destroy the gift, after that if you then start the Zomburger mission Dock Dash, keep repeating the mission until the timer doesn't show up and time freezes, and then if you destroy the gift that you're meant to defend in Leaf Day, you will finally be able to roam the backyard as the delivery goat. It's a complex glitch and there are certain things you can't do like invite friends, but I guess it's pretty neat. Giant Shark. By performing the button combination up, down, left, right, or up, up, down, down at this area inside the pirate ship, then going outside, you can observe a giant shark emerging from the water outside the ship. Laser Goats. The Laser Goats were an unfinished goat class that was going to appear in a Cup Mystery Portal mode Team Vanquish Goats. Models and interfaces can still be found in the files. They have the physics of a regular goat and the ability to double jump. The plant version is called Laser Mohawk and has green armor, whereas the zombie version is called Laser Horns and has purple armor, and of course modding allows this to be playable. Moonworm. By the first capture point on Moonbase Z, around one of the ledges, if 10 players taunt, then a giant space worm creature will emerge from one of the craters. This creature is mentioned from posters all around the map, rewards for hunting the worm and such, and even at the fourth capture point, if you take a detour around some of the cave systems and wait a little bit, you can actually spot the worm emerging from within the moon. Morph Glitch. Essentially what the morph glitch is a glitch that allows the player to sort of merge two character models together into one glitchy mess of character. Pressing change character with perfect timing before being revived is what triggers this, and it ultimately results in a distorted mashup of the two characters when you respawn. Warping out of bounds. So I'm sure we are all familiar with the sometimes quite egregious out of bounds limitations the game has on map exploration sometimes, but it's actually possible to bypass some of these limits in certain areas in the game using the Scientist's warp ability. Using precise positioning, you can clip through solid walls to get into places you shouldn't be able to. Like some of these examples on screen, in the backyard you can literally just walk through solid objects. Not sure where you can apply this in multiplayer, but feel free to mess around with it because it's pretty interesting. Who are the Wizards? The Wizards are a mysterious group that appear across the Seeds of Time and Time Park maps. From what the game tells us, they are sort of these all-knowing, time-traveling magic people, and they are responsible for creating Time Park and Seeds of Time. From the description of Time Park, we can learn the wizards quote-unquote reverse-engineered gnome technology when constructing the portals, and all across the map we can see these little displays of the wizards' almost omniscient knowledge of all of time in the universe. And I suppose eventually the wizard did appear in BFN for what that's worth. Infinity Time Dev Room. When spawning into Infinity Time, if you go over to the left of the usual platform you have to stand on to initiate the game, and go through the secret passage in the wall, you'll be met with this Easter egg with the names of all the developers on it on the wall. I guess this is a pretty cool novelty little Easter egg room in the game, and a nice way to pay homage to the people that made Infinity Time and the game possible. Super Brains made in a lab. So yes, just as the entry says, Super Brains was canonically created in a lab for, quote, the sole purpose of fighting the Battle of Zomburbia, according to his sticker book entry in Garden Warfare 2, although this does conflict with PVZ Heroes where he was made by the Herotron 5000. Level 0. A game crash, freeze, or manual reset while auto-saving for character promotion can actually cause a character to temporarily reach level 0 mastery, but it's easily fixed and reset back to level 1 when you gain literally any XP. Invincibility in Backyard. So yet another backyard glitch, and this one is, well, it makes you invincible as it says, and this can be done by interacting with one of the large backyard statue customization and pressing the menu button at the same time. By then exiting the menu, you can fully exit back out into normal perspective and you will be completely invincible to all damage. And thankfully nothing like this is possible in multiplayer, because that would just be downright insane. Zombot in Garden Warfare 1 trailer. Despite not actually appearing in the final game, the Zombot does appear in this E3 trailer. Although the Zombot didn't fully appear until Garden Warfare 2, it is notable that there actually is a not fully programmed, but partially programmed Zombot boss fight in the Garden Warfare 1 files that never made it into the final game. Zombopolis Train. While we all probably know the Zombopolis trains for their insanely annoying at times instant kill mechanics, there is actually more to them than meets the eye in an average match. By using mods / hacks that allow you to go out of bounds and make you invincible, you can actually go past the train tunnel and you will be met with this, a just huge wasteland, which is par for the course for games. Of course there's out of bounds areas, but look at the train. It continues to travel far, far outside of the bounds of the map, even after none of the players would see it, and it's just odd that it doesn't, just despawn like you would expect it to. Reused imp sounds from Garden Warfare 1. In Garden Warfare 1, the most capacity the imp appears in is as a spawnable zombie with these voice clips. And you may recognise that these are actually used for the playable imp class in things like the imp kata and when flying. So imp sounds from Garden Warfare 1 were repurposed for Garden Warfare 2. SWAT Zombie. So the class that eventually went on to become the Foot Soldier originally had quite a different name and design in earlier development. Going by early concept art, the SWAT Zombie was the early idea for the class, with a design featuring a rifle attached to the zombie's arm, handcuffs, and just a general SWAT theme. My guess as to why they switched to a soldier design is the SWAT theme just seemed a bit too serious for a relatively light-hearted game, or they just found the soldier design to be much more iconic. Either way, I think the soldier class was a much better fit for the game's aesthetic. BFN Loyalty Rewards. During some of the early build-up to Battle for Neighborville's release, I'm talking before we even had certainty of the game's name, this sort of tier/reward system was actually found in the Garden Warfare 2 files. As you can see here, the UI shows 5 tiers of locked rewards and says you need BFN to unlock them, but from memory this never actually appeared in the game. Unused loading themes. In the files of Garden Warfare 1, there are actually 2 6th and 7th variations of the loading theme in the game that went unused. That was one of them. The other one is incredibly similar. They use the same sounds, it's just slightly different compositions. Where are all the humans? A question that might seem somewhat inane in a literal post-apocalyptic zombie-invaded world, but seriously, where are all of them? We see Crazy Dave throughout the game, and in BFN, which likely takes place after Garden Warfare, we can literally see humans in the game. Going around a lot of the suburban areas in the game, we can see the gardens and houses are completely well kept, and in pretty much all the houses in the distance of maps, the lights are on and it looks like they're inhabiting humans, presumably. If I had to guess, I'd just say the human population is probably on extreme lockdown given the high zombie concentration in the game. I mean, the human population must be present in the game to at least some capacity. Sports Juice. The Sports Juice was an ability for the All-Star that was scrapped in early development of Garden Warfare. Going by concept art, the ability acted as some sort of transformation type of move for the All-Star, where the All-Star would drink juice and transformed into a hulked out version of the character, and this went on to be backed by one of Justin Y's tweets. Colonel Korn has PTSD from war. So Colonel Korn, of course, canonically is, well, a colonel. He operated in war and has a very strong military theme. But you can see just how extreme this attachment is in his agent area. His place of living, the plane, everything is completely reminiscent of war, and there's nothing meant for leisure. Whereas the Citron and Rose, they actually look like places of living. There's chairs, beds, stairs, it's like a real home. While the Korn is just there in a small field in a broken down building. He's stuck in his war-stricken past and can't escape, basically. House Gargantuar glitch. So the House Gargantuar glitch is this glitch where basically if you destroy the Garg's house while the Garg's in charge attack mode, he'll basically retain the super speed and just be in an infinite state of charge. I mean, you can imagine how hectic it must be to try to face down a Gargantuar that is permanently running at you and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Definitely one of the more, terrifying glitches in the game. Bling Chomper. The Bling Chomper was one of the original Chomper variant concepts, but it was scrapped ultimately for being too underpowered. No more details were really shared about it, so it's unknown why it was considered weak. But to be honest, just from looking at it, I can't really decipher what its gimmick would be. It just looks like a Chomper with some gold customization. And if I had to guess, the Disco Chomper's design was probably ultimately inspired from it, given the same shared sort of flashy motif. Sprint Smash Weapon. The Sprint Smash weapon was a scrapped ability for the Torchwood that would have acted similarly to the All-Star's Sprint Tackle. From data mining, its description was found to be Torchwood will rush forward and smash his hand on the floor, dealing 75 damage to all zombies in a radius. And it doesn't take too much imagination to draw the parallel between this ability and the ability the boss Torchwood does. Zombopolis Red Light. This entry it's just so strange. It's really quite an elusive and obscure entry and probably is, to be honest, one of the hardest to research on the whole iceberg. The red light is this sort of anomalous occurrence that can apparently be encountered by angling your camera at a specific angle on this rooftop on the first point of Zombopolis. As you can see from this screenshot, there is literally just a red light hovering there amidst Zombopolis, just completely unexplainable. I wouldn't have even known about this if it wasn't for this Reddit user commenting on my iceberg post, so what exactly is the red light? Why does it only trigger in this one place in the game? Who knows? Really such a weird entry. Original Citron weapon. The Citron's orange beam that we are all used to actually wasn't the initially planned primary weapon for the character. See, in the E3 2015 release trailer, which most of us will know as the intro cinematic, the Citron can actually be seen shooting a burst projectile weapon, and not a weapon with an automatic firing style like in the final game. This change was likely made to make him a better counterpart to the All-Star, and we can still see remnants of this sort of semi-automatic firing style in the Toxic Citron. The real King Nomus. Nomus the Gnome King is one of the few main antagonists of the Garden Warfare franchise, and he appears in Infinity Time mainly, where he will every 5 waves warn the player that the real King Nomus is about to spawn. And the player will defeat said king, and this will repeat time and time again every single time, and without fail it will always be revealed following the boss that this was not the real King Nomus, it was just an imposter. Even going all the way to wave 100 gets you nowhere as to the real identity of King Nomus. And it does raise several questions. I mean, where is the real King Nomus? Is the one giving the dialogue the real one? How many of these imposters even are there? Well, I guess we will never know since he never does appear in the game. Cryogenic capsules on Moonbase Z. At certain points on Moonbase Z, if you stop to look around a bit, you'll begin to run into these cryogenic capsules lying around. Aside from the admittedly somewhat haunting face of the frozen zombie, the implications of the actual cryogenic procedures are a lot darker. I mean, for what purpose do the zombies literally need to freeze and preserve their kind? Are the zombies planning something with a lot more longevity and much more sinister implications than just killing potted plants and eating brains here? Some of the anecdotal trivia in Seeds of Time tells us Zomboss is hiding a secret weapon on the dark side of the moon. The zombies moving to the moon as a temporary home perhaps while they kill off everything on Earth. These capsules are the first inklings of them establishing a way of surviving over time on the moon. Gnome Depot. Before the Trials of Gnomus DLC was released and therefore before Rux made his appearance in the game, his original place in the sewer was under construction. But from looking at the split screen TVs in the zombie or plant base, it's actually interesting to see the presence of a gnome was actually foreshadowed far before the DLC, with the name Gnome Depot, which of course went on to be Rux's Bazaar in the sewers, which was then ultimately moved to Rux's Bazaar in the plant and zombie bases. While this is just presumably a reference to real life store Home Depot, it is still a pretty interesting entry. AI can enter multiplayer. So of course AI are present in multiplayer to some capacity. You can play with bots in solo play, and spawnable AI have been in both of the Garden Warfare games in multiplayer. But this entry is referring to something a lot more elaborate and with a lot more interesting implications than that. Just take a look at this clip. I turned on the multiplayer portal and the AI, just like any human player, entered it. So therefore the AI, for all intents and purposes, can technically enter multiplayer. But I'll let you make your own judgments on what this could mean. Nature has been zombified. Of course we know the zombies can zombify humans, that's literally the whole point of their character, but it's interesting to note how they have essentially completely terraformed all of the landscape. I mean, the greens and blues of the natural world are completely distorted into purples and dark blues and blacks in all of the zombie territory. What with great cranes and machines like you're seeing here, it's almost like they are making an effort to completely change the landscape. Now, while of course from a stylistic perspective, the devs would have just done this to differentiate the zombie territory from the plants, it's also more interesting to see what they've done to the wildlife as well. Almost entirely mutating all the natural wildlife, like these humongous flies, these ginormous spiders, scorpions as well, mutated to insane sizes, and whatever the hell this thing is. And it does begin to make you ask, what exactly is Zomboss doing to the wildlife? Marine life also is not safe, with fish with zombie faces and living, breathing, moving skeletons in the water. Seems the marine biologists are causing a lot more damage to life than just 50 at close range. Football pitch invasion. A bit more of a light-hearted entry here, but in the plant side of the backyard there is a little interactable sort of minigame football pitch thing that you can play on as either zombie or plant. After scoring, an AI on each side will spawn, and this will repeat until the stands are completely full with 4 of the AI on each side. But what's interesting is what happens if the player were to choose to shoot into the crowd. See here, after shooting, basically all the AI will just flood the pitch and it will start their own little war between the AI, which is pretty cool to watch, I suppose. Brain Slug Invasion. So while the average player would probably brush over this part of the game and just think nothing of it, this is actually one of the most sinister parts of the series. So across the backyard there's quite a few little side quests, and one of these will have you talking to the Brain Slug. Upon talking to him, he will introduce himself as a Brain Slug who has just arrived on this planet, before then detailing that he is in search of hosts for his race. He then urges you to go clear up some plant life that's been bothering him, and this just involves hunting down a plant target, and upon completion you will return to him with this dialogue. Good, you have returned successfully. Remind me to leech onto your head when we take over this planet. Another plant is posing a threat to our plants. Get rid of her. Rinse and repeat the same formula you had in the first half, and you will return for the final dialogue interaction with the Brain Slug. He tells you you have been very useful before saying he might just spare your kind when the invasion happens. Lastly saying his race will be free to enslave your planet before sending you on one final quest. And the player's ultimate reward for finishing this is, well, a Brain Slug hat. Equipping this hat, your zombie has literally become the host for the Brain Slug, just as it said. Packs are rigged. Some would call this a conspiracy, some would, but some are wrong. I'm sure a very large portion of the player base can testify to experiencing pack luck that, to put it bluntly, is absolutely terrible. For all the times that you've just got super rare after super rare after super rare after super rare, and the one time you get a legendary, it's a hat. It sometimes just feels like the game is literally plotting for you to never get legendary characters. Especially when conveniently your mate who hasn't hopped on in half a decade has every legendary in the game and you're sat there with like one legendary character piece for like Disco Chomper or something. Conclusively, the turnout from packs a lot of the time is just depressing and you can go for obscene stretches of time without any legendary character pieces at all. Plants and zombies ruin time. Throughout all of Garden Warfare 2, through all of the historical / time themed maps, none of them are actually accurate to human history. The Sphinx in Sandy Sands has a zombie head, not a human's. All the sarcophagi have Crazy Dave heads, and all the vases have plant and zombie insignia all over them. Almost like the Egyptian themed maps have no traces of actual Egyptians at all. The same can be said for Colosseum and all the Roman themed areas. Statues of Roman warriors completely replaced by zombies, and the statue of what should be a Roman emperor completely replaced by a statue of Zomboss, even down to the namesake being completely removed. And it almost starts to feel like all of time has been rewritten in the image of the plants and zombies. Now, while Seeds of Time and Time Park were created for entertainment purposes as time theme parks, I'd say we can still rely on it for some historical accuracy in the universe, and the same notion is shared. All depictions of dinosaurs, not as real historically accurate dinosaurs, but as plant versions of them. And this same general idea of time being framed under the premise of plants and zombies is mirrored through all of the map. The plants and zombies, bleeding through all of history and warping it to their image, have in effect ruined time, past, present, and future. Imp prejudice. If you ever stop to take a look at how the imps are actually treated in the Garden Warfare world, you'll realize it is pretty vile. I mean, look at this in the zombie base in Garden Warfare 2. Literally an imp farm. An imp farm. Arrows pointing, saying sleeping imps, working imps, almost presenting them like a cheap piece of decoration or entertainment. Or like pets, even. I mean, do the rest of the zombies even regard imps as the same species as them? It's really disturbing when you realize this is literally them trapping their fellow zombie in farms for amusement. This same display of almost racism against imps from the zombies can be perfectly encapsulated in them literally being kept in the zoo with the rest of the animals. Given that imps are literally kept in zoos and displayed in farms on walls, I mean, it's safe to say the zombies definitely do not treat them as equals to them at all. And it's crazy to think there's probably racism in the Garden Warfare world. The moon is alive. Okay, so you will have to hear me out on this one, but just listen. So, at a surface level, the only life present on the moon is the zombie installations and occupations and the moonworm and other indigenous life. But what if I was to suggest the moon as a whole is the living organism here? I mean, of course it has a zombie face, which is comical at the surface, but let's dig a bit deeper. I mean, think about it. The moon is constantly being harvested for brain crystals by the zombies, literal brain matter crystals, and how can a mere ball of rock be producing such a material that assumably holds all the same characteristics as a piece of biological brain matter? Add to this the moonworm and the fact that the moon has parasites. It's almost like it is just one ginormous organism with its own biological ecosystem within it. Zomboss and his forces antagonizing this creature, harvesting the very brain matter it presumably needs to survive. And if this is all true, and the moon is feeling every second of Zomboss's drilling operation, then it begins to show just how morally disturbing this whole ordeal really is, and how Dr. Zomboss may be something a lot deeper and a lot darker than just a villain. Plasma P is God. Take a look at Plasma P's sticker book description and it reads this. The Plasma P shooter shoots Ps that are entire universes unto themselves. Ps of swirling, twirling galaxies home to millions of stars. Ps with enormous nebula that dwarf you and I. Ps sown of the very fabric of space-time, from which the infinite possibilities of the cosmos are born. For every shot you make as Plasma P shooter, for every time you pull your trigger, for every P you shoot, you are destroying universes, massacring trillions. The Plasma P is all powerful. Plasma P is God. Well, there you have it. The Garden Warfare Iceberg has been explained. I really hope the video resonated with you, and I know all YouTubers ask this, but if you really liked it, then please comment and subscribe. And I have nothing more to say than thank you for watching.
But nobody likes you.